Diversity is a total bullshit, almost like real estate. Homes are a horrific investment. Housing limits options. Why would I want to lock myself into a zip code? I think these are just cultural beliefs that the banking system sold us. This is a cultural thing. It is not an investment.
But there are a lot of people that make their fortune with real estate, right? Is it still possible today?
I think everyone is already at peak consumption, especially the super rich. They can't have any more villas, they don't need any more Rolexes, they can only have so many Bugattis and cars and purses and mistresses and villas and boats and airplanes. Super wealthy, very sophisticated players in the last few years have been studying this market, and they're now coming in with a very different appetite. You're absolutely out of your mind. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are going to end up broke.
Got the whole crypto world going wild. Money blockchain, she's the queen of the game. Stacking crypto like it's her claim to fame. If you want success, then take a look away.
Today's guest is someone our viewer absolutely loved last time he was on, and the feedback was off the charts. Hello, Gary.
Hello. Good to see you, Bonnie.
I think people really resonates with your comment you said owning a home is a terrible, terrible, terrible investment, and you used 3 terribles.
I'll just cut to the chase. Owning a home is a horrible, horrible, horrible investment.
Some people hated it. Some people loved it. Is it really that bad?
Well, mathematically, I think I can prove that it's a horrific, terrible times 3 investment. The other thing is I think they really take up a lot of time and energy. You know, a husband and wife get married, Sally and Bob get married, and it's a beautiful April day, and then, you know, the culture of Sally says you must, in order to be successful, you must own a home. The truth is, unless you could pay cash for that home, you don't really own it. So they're really saying, hey, you need to take a liability out, put some weight on your back to own something, or at least pretend to the public that you own something. Sally and Bob are all excited, they're romantic, and then on a Saturday afternoon, Bob's got to go fix the roof, or Bob's got to fix the plumbing. Now, all of a sudden, Sally really married a plumber and a roof maker, right? So you see how the house now is starting to interfere with a relationship, because I don't think the lady really wanted to hire a plumber or marry a plumber. You're literally spending time taking care of this thing instead of taking care of each other. And no one ever has walked into my home and said, by the way, before I step into this door, do you own or rent it? As if it would be a different experience with me whether I had a mortgage or did not have a mortgage or had a lease. So I think these are just cultural beliefs that the banking system sold us so that we would own a home. Maybe in 1950 it was cool, but in 2025, when you have a transient world where we can speak to people in Asia at the click of a switch with high stream video, why would I want to lock myself into a zip code? Into one county or one province or one anything? It's limited my options. Yeah. Housing limits options.
But there are a lot of comments. People say, the fact that, you say owning a home is a bad investment, it's just in the U.S. Taiwan and Asia are different, they said.
Well, it depends. If you're buying a home because you like to sweep up the floors and take care of things and have this place that you call home. Like I have a mortgage on a home. I wished I didn't. By that, I mean, this house that I live in is not worth $120 million. Had I invested the same amount of money in 2020, October of 2020, in the home I live in, I think you're going to come to an event at my house in November. You let me know if this house is worth $120 million or not. Had I invested that same amount of money in October of 2020 into Bitcoin, it would be worth $120 million today. Like, did my house really increase in value? No, you're going to sit here and go, dude, this house is nice, but it's not worth $120 million. How many homes could I have rented or bought? How many hotels could I have bought for $120 million? The return over 10 years, 3 years, or 20 years is very, very different.
I actually looked it up. So because people commented like, oh, it's different in US and Taiwan. So I looked it up. The past 20 years, Taipei and LA comparison. Price growth, Taipei 2.5 to 3x, LA 2 to 2.5x. But net yield, Taiwan is actually lower than 0%. LA 2 to 4% growth. So it's not good.
I think if you run the numbers, the numbers, it's not an investment. It's a luxury. And no one said anyone had to own a home. When you come to America, you don't buy the whole hotel. You rent a room, and you have no shame about it. It's efficient. This is a cultural thing. It is not an investment. I think it's a liability. It's something that it's like you're walking around with luggage all the time. You can't easily get out. If I offered you a job for $500,000 today, and you lived I have literally had people say, listen, I can't move from Arizona because my 2-year-old kid is building his social network.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. and, well, the real deal is the wife likes having mom nearby so she can rent a nanny. But the guy passed on a $500,000 job because he owns a house in Arizona and has a cheap interest rate. I hear this all the time. I can't move. I have a 4% note. Really, you have so you're worried about paying 2 more percentage points on $100,000 because you don't want to leave Arizona. You want to leave Arizona, but you want that 4% note, and you won't move it for 6%. It's a 2% delta on $100,000. It's nothing. $2,000 a year to not have optionality. I don't get it. That's why I love Bitcoin, because it gives me an unbelievable upside potential and unlimited optionality.
Can I say it's also an emotional thing because I know I'll never get kicked out of my house. 美国的天才法案呢，最大的影响就是稳定币的发展，还有跨境支付的新革命。稳定币呢，就像数位版的法定货币，便利性超高，交易成本超低。如果台湾能够把握这一波浪潮啊，比如说推出台币的稳定币，不但可能可以帮助企业降低跨境交易的成本，还可以吸引更多全球厉害的金融科技人才来到台湾发展。台湾最强的就是进出口贸易嘛，如果可以善用稳定币做跨境支付，那企业呢就能更快速、更便宜的进行国际交易，这对提升国际竞争力来说是一大的利多。如果你也想跟上目前最新的科技跟金融的革命，那一定要注意 AWS 2025年这一个新金融新经济论坛。论坛里面呢会出现很多超强的卡司，特别是来自金融啊、游戏娱乐、运动、零售这些产业的国外讲者，比如说 StraightX、酷鹏、日本三菱银行、Sport Radar 都会分享他们到底怎么样把握这波金融科技的浪潮，以及这些大公司到底怎么用 AWS 还有 AI 来提升竞争力。这次活动呢还准备了超丰富的 AWS 礼物。数位金融科技呢正在重塑全球的金融版图，你肯定不会想要错过。推荐大家呢一起参与这一场精彩可期的论坛，现在就点击下方的报名链接参加，我们论坛见。I bought my first home 7 years ago, and the price doubled, since then. But people look at it and be like,
did you sell it?
No.
Did you sell it?
No.
Why not? You doubled it in 7 years. That's a good return.
Yeah, like people would look at it and be like, this is great. But if you look at it in Bitcoin terms, it's terrible.
Horrific.
But at the time, this... Like you said, it's probably like a luxury. It's an emotional comfort, and that was the best purchase, right?
The thing is, though, you haven't even considered selling it. It's doubled in price. If Bitcoin doubled in price, if you'd have bought Bitcoin, at $16,000. You'd have 10x'd. The 10x right now for 7 years is probably more than that. But let's call it a 10x. You would have put $100,000 into your home, you'd have made $1.2 million right now. You would have already looked at selling your Bitcoin from 16 to 35. You'd have been like, that's a double. You would have. But with your house, you never even think about it. Now, I'm going to say that unless you think house prices are going to go up 8% a year forever, you've probably made the most amount of money you're going to make on that house. That means $200,000 house, that's $16,000 a year, an increase every year. On the Bitcoin, you would have probably sold it at 35, 55, and the house, you didn't even think about it. And that return is going down now. That return will not go up from here. The IRR, right, the internal rate of return, the time value of return, I made all my money on this house probably in the first 2 years, and everything after this is going to be less return.
But there are a lot of people that make their fortune with real estate, right?
Yeah.
Is it still possible today?
I mean, I've got a famous brother that he's made a lot of money on real estate. Is it possible? I think it's possible the way he's doing it, but he's buying. Let's not conflate real estate. There's 3 buckets of real estate, really. There's, well, maybe 4. There's multi-dwelling, which is what we do, apartments that generate income. There's homes, which is what we're talking about. Homes are a horrific investment. There's farming, agricultural, okay, which really requires you to farm the land. And then there's corporate commercial. Corporate commercial is destroyed. I mean, it's absolutely, in America, it's just absolutely hammered. This is all the stuff in 2020 and 2021 that was bought, and it was bought with zero, all interest. All interest. 2%, and then that 2% went to 6%, and now people are upside down. If you really analyze the market, all that real estate, it's the 2020 and the 2021 and the private equity stuff, all that vintage was it just got overpriced. And it got overpriced with extremely cheap debt that now has changed, and they can't afford the rate. So I think you can make money in real estate. I think to me, real estate was an awesome investment until Bitcoin came around. If you're an old family and you've been doing real estate your whole life, you are doing yourself an absolute disservice if you do not understand the relationship or the correlation between a physical piece of real estate, corporate, residential, or otherwise, and Bitcoin. You really do. If you have some kind of challenge and you don't understand it, you serve yourself very, very well to understand why that is. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's worth your time for the debate, for sure.
Remember Grant said, can you live in Bitcoin, right?
You don't have a use. You don't have a use. You don't have.
What would happen to cars?
Nobody's sleeping in
if you
Bitcoin, bro. Like you guys got to get off this craziness.
This is about investing.
Can you sleep in a Bitcoin? I don't think so.
Real estate is still, I think his argument is real estate is still very big asset class. And people like us, we love Bitcoin and all we talk about is Bitcoin. But we cannot ignore that big asset class.
Well, I don't think anybody's ignoring it. One, I think most people already have all the real estate they need. This is why I'm very bearish on legacy assets as you and I know them. I think everyone is already at peak consumption. And I think with that, right, I think everyone, especially the super rich, in fact, the rich, I think they can't have any more villas. They don't need any more Rolexes. They can only have so many Bugattis and cars and purses and mistresses and villas and boats and airplanes. There gets a point when you're like, hey, I don't need another 650. Okay, I don't need another Colorado house. Now, what don't they have? So I think when Grant, I will say one thing, it's going to be really interesting to watch his progression now. I will predict his progression will be, you will see a man from legacy assets change to Bitcoin so hard. He will understand the value of having premier piece of real estate that he is not locked up in a location. We are having floods all over this country right now. Chicago, New Mexico, Texas. It's not hitting Bitcoin. These storms are not harming Bitcoin. And you cannot tell me you're not sitting on tons of real estate and there's lightning storms and all kinds of events and fires and wars and you don't have exposure. You cannot pick up a piece of real estate and just move it. So there's a huge value. Oh, wow, I have a rare piece of real estate, 3,500 billionaires on this planet. 3,500 billionaires on planet Earth, each of them worth an average of $4.5 to $5.5 billion. I think 30 or 40 of them are in Bitcoin.
Oh, that's not a lot.
That is 10% is 350 billionaires. $5.5 billion valuation each. They all buy 20%. We have major analytics firms now suggesting 30 and 40% allocation to Bitcoin. 300 billionaires decide they're going to buy $300 billion worth of Bitcoin each, 1 billion each. If it goes to zero, which is impossible to do at this point, their life does not change. If it increases 10x, my God. Okay, the asymmetrical nature of this trade for extremely wealthy people, these people are coming in buying thousands of Bitcoin right now. They are not buying 10 Bitcoin. They are, and this is my point about my brother. My brother represents a substructure or subsection of a certain type of investor. I was in front of him being a little crazier, much more risk, happy to be early, don't care about legacy, didn't have a business I was trying to protect. And the people even before me that came in 13, they were just anarchists, right? And some of them won lottery tickets, and some of them understood what we were doing. But now you have a real industry here, a $2 trillion industry. My brother was never going to double his real estate position. Not possible. And that's how I pitched him. Hey, if you want to double or triple your position, you're going to have to do something out of the box. You can't keep going to the bank going, hey, can I borrow $80 million? And then it's just too much work. And now you see, once you get a taste of this, it's a little bit like, selling street drugs. Once somebody gets a taste of it, if it's a good experience for them, they go deeper. And we are having in the last 2 years, and this is, you people need to really understand what's happening here. The super wealthy, very sophisticated players in the last 2 years have been studying this market. And they're now coming in, and they're coming in with a very different appetite for consumption of Bitcoin. This is not the prior 13 years. These are professionals. Like, I've been buying Bitcoin as a 15 to 20 year play. I am not getting rid of my Bitcoin. It is a real estate play for me. I've been doing this my whole life. You want to compare real estate, the real pain here, compare Bitcoin to private equity. I've been building businesses my whole life. I probably will never build another business, an operating business, because I have found a holy grail where I have growth over 13, 15% a year with zero human error risk. Zero human error risk. You just heard my dogs. My dogs weren't supposed to be barking. So I have a human error risk. Somebody here is not paying attention. Right? It's a problem, though. Right? It is a problem. So if I can invest in something that could go up 12 or 13% a year, and
that's pretty conservative.
Bitcoin's been doing 45 and 50.
Yeah.
But if a 12% investment per year, you become wealthy over 20 years. Okay, that's super returns. I don't know what everybody, we're looking at 45s. I look at it and go, I'm happy with 13, dude. I'm all in on Bitcoin. Bitcoin will give me Bitcoin will give me a 23% yield over 20 years. Would you do that? Of course you would. Do the math on that trade. 23% money's going to be doubling every 3 or 4 years. Every 3 or 4 years. $1 million goes to $2 million in 3 years. $2 million goes to $4 million in year 6. $4 million goes to $8 million in year 9. And you could take that with $100,000. So $100,000, and young people are looking at me going, well, that's not a great return. Like, I can't put $100,000 into Bitcoin. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are going to end up broke. You're going to end up broke because you don't understand energy. You were talking about young people earlier, right? I think they're confused. I think they need to understand that you're getting ready to get on a racetrack of life. And it has many turns and swivels, and as things get more complicated, the track gets more complicated, and no one has considered how much fuel they need for the journey.
Somebody would say, okay, if you look at the return of big tech stock, they do better than Bitcoin this year. So like, what is this big deal?
Well, let's compare that. So NVIDIA is a 26-year-old company. Bitcoin 16. If the CEO of NVIDIA were to die in an airplane crash, his stock most certainly would change. Now, I love using NVIDIA as an example of the big tech stacks. You do agree that if Wang got hurt, the stock price would reflect a risk. So would Elon. This is why I do not invest with Elon stocks. If Elon dies one day, come on. Key man risk, human error risk. Wow, I have this thing, Bitcoin. I don't have any of that. NVIDIA is a $4 trillion business. You cannot possibly tell me where all their assets are. It's a $4 trillion business. By the way, we've never had a $4 trillion business ever. Took 26 years to get there. Bitcoin 16, it's $2 trillion. NVIDIA is a company. It's got paper contracts. It's assuming the future income stream. Bitcoin assumes today's value is $117,800. It accepts no future value. This is something that people don't really appreciate. Bitcoin is literally worth what it's worth right now. Today is the bid, just like crude oil. And right now that marginal unit's 117.7. There is not ever going to be a stock split on Bitcoin. There will be stock splits on NVIDIA. We had a $250 billion move in 1 6-hour trading cycle on NVIDIA. Went up, and people are telling me that Bitcoin cannot move 10 and 15 and 20% in one day. You're absolutely out of your mind. It is exactly looking at the tech stacks that you would look at Bitcoin and go, oh my God, this is the holy grail. This is literally like finding a mine in your backyard full of gold, and no one is going to, the government isn't going to seize it. Your neighbor's not going to shoot you in the face and take it all. And all you have to do is do nothing, sit on it, hold it, and protect it. It's a finite, I don't think we've ever had finite.
That's the thing, like people think it sounds too good to be true.
I know.
And they're
I know. The only thing I can share with you is that you are one of one, and you're not one of 21 million. Bitcoin is one of 21 million. There's only ever going to be 21 million. This is how I really got interested in Bitcoin, quite frankly. It's a bit philosophical. I realize that you and I have a really difficult time as human beings establishing value. We want to put numbers on things to establish value. I had a man once tell me, he said, I know the price of everything and down to the penny and the value of nothing. And I'm like, wow, that's heavy duty, man. Okay, because see, the value to me of living is worth more than 2%. Oh, I got a cheap interest rate. I'm not going to move for 6. To me, it's like, wow, I'm not going to live my life that way. When I realized that I'm going to, initially as a human being, I'm going to look at you and go, oh, wow, there's Bonnie. Bonnie's one of one, and I don't even value her. We argue with each other. Hey, what's the difference in you? What's the difference in me? You're Asian. I'm an Anglo. Whatever, right? And I'm like, wow, human beings have no capacity to value finite. Because we argue with each other all the time instead of looking at you going, wow, look at Bonnie, man. She's doing unbelievable. She's an incredible one of one, a creature. And then I start looking at Bitcoin going, damn, man. There's an infinite amount of paper I can buy on NVIDIA. There is a finite volume of Bitcoin. It's never going to get accelerated. My commodity background in energy is very, very important here because I have never, ever not been able to find a barrel of crude oil or a unit of natural gas or a kilowatt of electricity. It's simply about how much am I willing to pay to get it out of the ground. Is it 60, 70, 80, or 100? We will never see $100 crude oil again, ever. All this stuff about energy
Why do you say
going to
that?
go up because a good 20% of the energy that we have found we don't even use. It's behind the pipe. It's just sitting there. And Bitcoin's going to suck it up. It's going to suck it up because right now that energy is getting zero. Of course people are going to go, oh, wow, I have some wind there. I have some thermal. I have a natural gas well over here that's got 20 million cubic feet a day in it. It's trapped. The pipeline's 100 miles away. I'm going to mine Bitcoin. And every country on the planet is going to do this because it's just money sitting there. You're literally converting wasted energy, stuck energy, trapped energy, and you're converting it into a storage unit of monetary value. And you get to determine when the timing is. Think about all the natural gas producers in the world that store natural gas for 3 and 4 months of the year so that they can have that natural gas available when they need peak, right? When the weather gets inclement. It costs 30 cents a month to store a unit of natural gas. Well, natural gas in America is priced at $2.50. You're going to spend $3.60 storing natural gas a year? Of course you're not. Not if you can convert it to Bitcoin. You're literally storing gas with a third party and paying a third party to store he's making money on your storage instead of you just storing it yourself in Bitcoin.
Okay, why aren't people doing that already?
Oh, they will do it.
Not yet.
The economics will drive them to do this. It's all now economics. People will look at, this is found money. This is just found money, right?
Okay, I'm wondering, you talked to a lot of super mega rich people, right? Family offices, billionaires, of course, and also people that only has like, let's say $5,000 in their pocket. How would you explain Bitcoin differently to each type of investors?
First off, I don't hang around that many billionaires. I find them really boring. I think investing $5,000, I don't think it's any different. I don't think, I think the real bad message to the $5,000 player is this idea on diversity and that you need to spread your bets around. I don't know any successful gamblers that show up and bet on 10 tables at one time. I don't know anyone that has 10 wives at one time, tries to make that work. Diversity is a total bullshit, ridiculous story, almost like real estate. No one that's gotten super rich unless they inherited the money, and that is super concentrated, by the way. There's no diversity in inheriting money, zero. You don't even get a choice in it. I don't think anybody actually gets rich unless they concentrate. Name one person. I mean, Jeff Bezos had all his wealth in Amazon. Anyone that's ever built a business, almost 90% of their wealth and 90% of their time is wrapped up in a private equity company, something I've only ever done. 12 years in one deal, 8 years in another deal. I'm broke 6 years of my life, and then I get overpaid. I make a ridiculous amount of money, and then I start over. If I can do that same thing, if I can invest $5,000 into a franchise that has 400 million marketers, it has less than 2% integration into the global market. It would be like, you know what it costs to own a McDonald's franchise? $2+ million.
Is it a one-time fee or like annual?
No,
I don't know.
And then you're going to have fees. You're going to have royalties. You're going to have contracts. You're going to have lawyers. You're going to have NDAs. You're going to have all this. You're going to have a physical location where people can break windows. Yeah. People are going to get sick. There's going to be food poisoning. I can invest $5,000 into a franchise and see that grow 20% a year. And by the way, you don't have to stop investing the $5,000. You can invest another $500 every month and you will become exceptionally wealthy. This is how wealthy people get wealthy, man. They make concentrated decisions and they continue to invest and they continue to invest and they don't see it. They don't conflate, oh, my house doubled in price, but I didn't sell it. But my Bitcoin doubled in price and I'm going to sell it. They don't make goals. When I put money to work, I decide how long that money's going to work. When I find somebody I like to invest time in, I think about, hey, I'm going to invest time and energy into this human being. I'm not going to just, the first time they're late, okay, you're out. First time I get a return. People don't really think about their investment as they do. They spend more time picking the school and what they're going to study than how they think about investing. I am learning because of Bitcoin. I'm able to make an investment in Bitcoin because I look at it as an investment in a operating business with no operators and no operating risk and no human error risk. So literally, it's the same. Look, I build a business. I spend 7 years making no money. I never pay myself anything. So I make no money, and I'm betting on the come that I'm gonna build a $500 million business and sell it. 7 years I sit there. Why don't I look at Bitcoin the same way? I have no employees. I have no HR issues. I have no contracts, no NDAs. I have no one cheating on me, no one stealing my money, no one suing me for, Gary didn't hire me properly. Gary said something. Gary wore pink to the office today, and it offended me. I'm going to sue him. I mean, seriously, this stuff happens, right? I just got through like 4 lawsuits because we built a really cool business and we irritated Visa and MasterCard. And 5 years of my life just doing legal. I have no legal exposure whatsoever on Bitcoin. And I can just keep stacking it on my friend. It's just such a wonderful experience. And then what am I allowed to do with my time? Oh, Gary's going to end up being a damn artist at the end of his life. That's pretty freaking cool, man.
Yeah.
I know 35-year-old men and women right now, their lives are set up through Bitcoin where they are now studying philosophy and they're raising their children with the mom and the dad are actually raising the children. They're not sending them away to a prison, school 8 hours a day, and they have really cool lives. I think, what if we have a lifeboat here, Bonnie, that actually gets us back to some traditional values that we've lost? And I think it's those traditional values that have us in this weird cycle of degradation over and over and over. And money is a problem. It's gravity.
I think when you talk about being lazy, we're referring to in Asia, there's this term that, young people think they cannot fight. Of course, this is a minority. I don't want to generalize young people, but there's a small group of people, they think they cannot fight the system. They cannot win. I cannot afford anything, so I might as well just lie down and survive.
I think if you grew up that way, then maybe you should go chat with your parents, because I think your parents let you down. Really. I mean,
but that's
I can't.
Like a generational thing, because housing is so expensive, right? They look at their paycheck. I will never be able to afford a house. Getting married is so expensive. The wife ask for this and that, right? Cannot afford it. So what can I do?
Well, I think people can stop spending money on things that don't generate, that don't produce something. I think people spend money on a lot of stupid stuff. First off, if you're going to sit there and be a victim and say, hey, I know I've had people pick me up in Los Angeles before. My favorite driver in the whole world was a Russian man. And he moved here. He had 4 kids. They all did doctorate degrees. He's an Uber driver, okay? No, a limo driver. His own deal, came from Russia. He loves this country. He said, my daughters are all at Stanford and everything. Don't tell me you can't do okay. Listen to my accent. I retired when I was 40 years old from England with the energy regulators and the largest monopoly in the world in energy with this bloody accent. And I just worked hard. I worked hard. I didn't blow my credibility. People ended up respecting me. I never cheated. I didn't lie. I didn't steal. And I kept my nose clean. And I became really good at one thing. And this is the mistake I think that many, many people around the world are making, especially, well, everyone, not just the young people. They have no passion. Like you're a victim because you haven't found your passion and what you really want to do. And it's hard to find your passion. You know that. And you can get off track, but this is life, right? But laying down, don't tell me you can't be a genius. Look, I think because of the internet, we're going to find more artists than we've ever discovered ever in the prior 500 years. Just simply through connection. I mean, real artists, right? I don't know where all the musicians are, okay? But you smile, but like, hey, that's a big gap. Where's all the great music? Like, I could build 8 businesses right now. I cannot find the right people. And I don't want to do it. I don't want to do these businesses. I want other people to operate them. And if it's going to be a real hassle for me, I'll just keep buying Bitcoin. And because that most certainly will be a better investment. I've got my daughter did 35 poems on a plane one afternoon. I'm like, my ex-wife was like, yeah, she's a little lazy. I'm like, no, she doesn't. She's lazy when she's doing something you want her to do. But I don't know anybody that's ever written 35 poems. Clearly, that's her deal, right? She's like zoned in on it. Well, that's what she should do. So you can't. Being a victim is going to lead you one place: on your back, being a victim, and blaming people for your travesty in life. I mean, it's just not. I don't want to hear it. I got my own problems, right? And I'm typically the guy that's the problem. It's if you're a victim, go look in the mirror and go, why do I like being a victim?
I think a lot of times they use that mentality to justify why they are not successful, right? And I want to ask you.
I go back to their parents because their parents should just slap them and say, hey, you're just being a child, okay? It's just being immature.
Do you think you can share something like how you grew up and what part of your story do you think these people would be very surprised to learn? Because people look at you and be like, oh, of course Gary is successful. Like, he is probably handed the playbook or whatever, right?
Yeah, no, that would be wrong. I really take my hat off to my mother. My mother, when Grant and I were 20 years old, my mother looked at us one day and said, hey, you cannot come back to this house, okay? You go find your own place. Kicked us out of the house. Don't ever come back here. You guys are animals. I will tell you, that was the single most important day of my entire life. The moment she pushed me out, at 21 years old, I left my zip code, I left the state, I left the city, and I would encourage everyone to leave your zip code, leave your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your buddies, your pals, and go find out who you are in the real world without mommy, without daddy. Call them every now and then, check in with them, cool, but like at some point I had to discover who I was. It was really cool for me. Grant stayed home, I went out on my own. And I started learning who I was, and I realized how small of a fish I was in a monster pool. And I found my right spot, and I didn't get too egotistical such that I was going to go bounce around and up my game. I stayed at one company for 17 years. Once I found my platform, this is the difference in Grant now. Grant would never work for anyone. I think he's probably pretty unemployable. He is. I mean, he'll probably tell you that. Whereas I went corporate and worked with hundreds of people. I had 600 people working for me at one time, from a 12-man startup. And I like that. I enjoyed working with other people. It was a very intellectually stimulating. I learned a lot about the macro global world. I would not have learned that in a smaller business. So, the message to me is, hey, find a platform, find a mentor, a teacher, read books. I've been reading books since I was 22 years old because I was so lost. I didn't have a dad and didn't have any mentors. No uncles wanted to touch us. I mean, we were a lot.
What do you mean by a lot?
Well, you've met a lot of people, and certain people have a lot of energy. I mean, you just you can feel this. This is why I keep saying, hey, people need to look inside themselves. There are different people. Like, you have unique energy. I have a very unique energy that is, the biggest goal is, the biggest challenge is really tapping into it and not being ashamed of it, and just, hey, this is me, man, in all its glory and dirtiness, right? It's just messy sometimes. Once I found a platform, though, I don't betray it. I stick in there and I learn from it, and I expand. I get stronger, and that I think people are missing that. They don't have the foundation. I've spent a lot of time reading books from authors in the 1800s and early 1900s about how to be successful, how to think differently, how to tap into. I think everyone's a genius, man, and they just have failed to tap into it. And my genius is picking these markets and making really like once I understand something, it would be a sin for me not to plow into this thing head. Somebody said once, they said, hey, I think Scott Bessent was asked by George Soros, who he worked for George. Bessent wanted to put on a trade. He said, hey, I'm so sure about this trade, man. And George said, so how much do you want to deploy? He said, I would deploy 100%. And he said, well, I thought you were really serious about the trade. If you were really serious, you'd leverage into it. See, that's real commitment from champions. Like, oh, wow, this is it? I'm going all in, man. I'm plowing into this trade. In fact, I'm going to plow into it and leverage it. And the truth is, that is what people do on houses. They just don't think about it. They're leveraging their lives into a house that's not going to give them that great return. Or they're leveraging it into a school to sit there for 6 years and think about, yeah, but where are you going to be when you get out? I am going to use a robot. I am not going to use a doctor. So I'd be preparing for that. I would be preparing for the future, looking at the future going, hey, what's it going to be like here?
I think you made it sound so easy. You're like, oh, I just left the house and I found my passion. But most people do not have the confidence to just go out into the world to find their passion. And I think what you said reminded me of our conversation with Anthony Scaramucci. So I'm going to quote him. He said, when he first started off, when you grow up the way he did, you're born with this insecurity, His dad was a blue-collar worker. He's never been in a commercial office building. It was very intimidating, so he had to learn. And if he could go back, he would tell himself to be more confident. But a lot of people never conquered that, right? They never worked through it.
I don't know that anybody, unless you grow up with a silver spoon and you grow up in the country clubs, and quite frankly, most of those people, they've never been people I hang out with anyway, so it's not like, I'm not saying all, but it's just not the world I grew up in. I don't need somebody wearing a bunch of fancy watches and driving fancy cars to impress me. Money does not impress me. It doesn't. It's how you behave. Look, I think Anthony and I probably grew up fairly similar. Clearly our politics are appreciably different, but I've always felt awkward. I've most certainly not been a part of the club, and there are clubs, double handshakes and the whole deal. I've always been on the outside, so I actually feel like I'm on the outside of Scaramucci's club. But, the truth is, I really have zero interest in being anybody's club. Because clubs get weird. I have been very successful outside the system, beating the system. And my expertise has literally been moving into legacy markets. By the way, we're punching right past $118,000 right now in Bitcoin. You do these interviews and you get all-time highs, Bonnie. Go, Bonnie!
Nice.
Yeah, this is a monster move here. What's happening here in Bitcoin in the last day, it's a big deal. By the way, the more this price goes up, the more the rich are going to plow into this thing like you've never seen it before. This is the second stage of Bitcoin. This is going to be the most impactful stage of Bitcoin's history. I'm going to say that again. Okay. More money is going to be made in the next 4 years and kept than the prior 15.
Can I know why you say that?
Why?
Why do you say that?
One, nobody's losing any Bitcoin today. Nobody's disrespecting Bitcoin at $118,000. 3.5 to 4 million coins were lost on Bitcoin with self-custody because they did not respect it, because they mispriced it. Everybody mispriced it. We're still mispricing Bitcoin. Absolutely still mispricing it. At 118,000, the super rich will come in here and not even think about it. They actually want to see this number really strong. And the stronger it is, they're going to they will think nothing of that it was at 34,000 a year ago. They will not even think about it. And they will hold this longer than the prior Bitcoiners. They will hold it much longer. This is a generational wealth and power event, an opportunity, the likes I've never seen before.
Is it because of the price? Is it because of politics? Is it because of regulation? Why now?
You know, I'm so glad that Trump didn't get in office in 2020 because Bitcoin wasn't ready. It's really interesting that, because I think he got that probably taken away from him, and I'm cool with it because we were not ready. Something like almost magical happened. We needed that period where we saw the other side go really draconian. They did everything they could to stop Bitcoin. And now there's zero regulatory risk. I mean, zero. There's zero regulatory lack of clarity about Bitcoin. There's 100% clarity. They just changed the dealer-broker rules on reporting, making it even easier. There's zero headwinds on Bitcoin now. We have people like Ricardo Salinas. If you haven't interviewed Mr. Salinas, he's awesome. Okay, you should really do that. He's one of my favorite people in the whole world. Going to 100% allocation. 76, 78-year-old billionaire. 100% allocation. He's moving off of gold. He's moving off of gold. Bitcoin's a $2.2 trillion marketplace. The gold market just in jewelry is $6 trillion. See, people talk about the whole gold market. I'm like, hey, why don't we just take out the jewelry part of it first, right? Or the industrial use of it. So we have a long way to go here. This is just like the internet in 1995.
If you meet a person handling family office, is this how you would explain to them?
The way I explain it to them is I ask to look at the rest of their portfolio. I simply, hey, can I see your portfolio? I don't need to see how much. I just need to see what you're invested in. Philip Morris, this, NVIDIA, blah, blah. Okay. Hey, look, right over here, you got a 2% yield on this thing. Why would you like to do better? This is not hard to do. Hey, let me take your dogs. Let me take your crappy investments. And can't get any worse than 2%. I've gone to people before, Bonnie, that had $500,000 sitting in cash and said they're making 3% or 4%. And said, look, I'll guarantee you 5%. And I'll give you some of the upside. I went to my sister. She banks with Bank of America. I said, Diane, do you trust me more or less than Bank of America? She said, well, I trust you more. I said, give me that $300,000. I'll give you 100%. I'll give you 1% more than you're making and 10% of the upside. Right? Well, I'm going to help my sister. She doesn't want to take her 300 grand into Bitcoin, so I'll give her 5% and I'll put it into Bitcoin, and then I'll give her some of the upside, and she will become very converted into Bitcoin. That's the way you convert Bitcoiners. I mean, people that are from the legacy world. Hey, I'll take it. I have decent credit. That says a lot to a rich guy when you go, hey, I'll take that trade from you. I'll protect you on that trade. And there are going to be products out there. Like I would offer someone a 6 and 7% yield a year to borrow their money. I would. If you guys want a 6%, 7% yield without housing, without having to lock yourself into a location, I would most certainly do that. And there will be institutions that do it. So we're going mainstream here now. This is literally, we are tapping into the worldwide market, and the addressable market on this is never, I don't think you can actually calculate the addressable market for Bitcoin, which is really, really interesting. Am I too bearish?
No. Actually, there was this very interesting moment in our last interview. You asked Grant, what if we could borrow 80 cents on the dollar against Bitcoin? What would happen to Bitcoin price then?
Yes, let me answer one question. What would happen to real estate if you couldn't borrow 80 cents on the dollar?
And I want to know your take. What do you think would happen?
I think the price of Bitcoin would probably go up 6 or 7x. If you couldn't borrow 80 cents on the dollar, in some cases 90, 95 cents on the dollar to buy a house, what would the house be worth? And that's the question nobody wants to answer that's in real estate. So he said it would get cut by 30 or 40%. No, it wouldn't. It would get cut by like a lot. See, I don't think anyone can afford a house. And I actually think these house prices going up like this is excellent. This is the way markets work. You let the price go up so high that people stop buying them. Then what happens? They all rent, and then the prices come down. No one wants to own a big old heavy house. And prices come down, okay? Or the next stage will be, I think I can build some AI technology to build a house for 50 cents on the dollar. And that's happening right now. So this inflation thing, like if you're in a house, I'd be selling the house. I do not think this is sustainable. You can't keep going up 8% a year. It's not. And the only reason it's going up is because you can borrow 80 and 90 cents on the dollar. That's it. Okay? Why do people that only have $5,000 to invest in Bitcoin own a $60,000 automobile? By the way, they don't own it. By the way, they don't own it. They make $100,000 a year and they go buy an Audi for $60,000 that's going to cost them $100,000.
Because it looks cool.
Yes, exactly. You should have bought a 1980. In fact, by the way, you only use that vehicle 4% of the time. Now that is a gross misuse of energy, just to look cool. I have one car, man. You come to my house, you're not like, hey, how many cars do you have, Gary? Who gives a toss? Like, why would I need a bunch of cars? I only use one of them.
There is this saying. So when you meet a bunch of, let's not say mega wealthy, rich people, they're always nicer because they have less problems. But if you meet, people that are struggling, they're worried about the next meal. They're worried about my hourly pay. They're not going to be as nice because they have so much on their mind. So a lot of times, I talk about my guests being amazing and being very patient and very nice with me. I'll see comments like, of course they're nice. They are rich. They're not, worried about the next meal. Things like that. And I want to know how you would respond to that.
I got to tell you, I've met more poor, nice people than I have rich, nice people. And having good manners on a podcast is totally different than actually being a really nice person. So I've learned much more from completely broke people By the way, I think one of the great little tricks in life is to make sure you don't just listen to rich people, okay, that you actually open your ears for that. The most impactful people in my life have been people that have come into my life for like 2 days, 1 hour, 12 minutes, and they left me with a gift. And had I judged them by the way they looked, I would never have listened to a word they said. Had I listened to how much money they had, I would have just dismissed them. So if you want to find out how flawed you are, make a shitload of money. Okay, because these problems do not go away. It will actually exasperate my insanities. Any kind of neuroses I have, it'll get worse with money. Okay, any kind of weirdness I have, you'll be challenged at every level, okay? When I was 6 or 7 years old, I was in a church, and I remember the priest. I can't believe this really impacted me. The priest said, grew up Catholic. He said, it is easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven.
When we met in Vegas not long ago, that was like 2 months ago, and you and Grant were super warm. There's this vibe that you guys are the same on and off camera. So when you say people want to present themselves very well because it's a podcast, I think there's some truth in it, but also, you want to look at a person when they're off camera. And I feel like you guys are super real, and honestly, it was very refreshing. We'll have you on hopefully soon again.
Look, have me on when it hits 140. Won't be too long.
That is soon. Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you.